Hello, everybody. My name is Rick Napier, the president at 321 Biz Development, located in Southwest Georgia, previously San Francisco, Sacramento. Please be on the lookout for a podcast episode about a real estate ruling by the Department of Justice that is trying to reduce real estate commissions. Now, I know the general public would be in favor of seeing real estate agents earn less commissions. It's just the nature of people. People sometimes say, hey, why are you making all that money selling a house or listing the house? But the fact is, every industry has a salary component, a commission type component that rewards people for working in the industry that they choose. Now, the interesting thing about this Department of Justice ruling is it seems like they want to reduce the commissions to a competitive status, which means they want the buyer or the seller to determine what the commission should be. Now, that's all fine and good, but that's going to cause a lot of problems. But the crux of this podcast episode is there are many different attempts now we see by the Department of Justice and the current administration to strip away the major components of capitalism. And for people who are cheering that real estate agents may get paid less, just wait until the Department of Justice or the government attacks your job or your industry. And maybe you might feel differently. Take care. This is Rick Napier, the president at 321 Biz Development, 321bizdev.com, toll-free telephone number 855-600-9911. And this podcast should be uploaded probably Sunday afternoon. Take care. Hello, everybody. My name is Rick Napier, the president at 321 Biz Development, located in Southwest Georgia near Columbus, but formerly of San Francisco, Sacramento. I've been here about 90 days since the Thanksgiving holidays. This podcast episode, number 861, will be about the DOJ ruling or the almost settlement of a real estate lawsuit. I think it's a class action lawsuit involving a handful of people in Massachusetts. And these people are suing real estate companies, the MLS company there in that state, I believe. And it's about the commissions. Now, I got to tell you something. So I'm going to lead you up to what I believe is going to ultimately happen. But I got to tell you, I'm an economics graduate at Cal Berkeley, and I wrote a paper back in 1993, I wrote a paper right before 1993, and the paper was, what if tyranny, socialism, communism ever came to America? And I was fortunate enough to have a professor who was the son of a French Foreign Legion, the French Underground, in other words, back in France. And you know the story of how, you know, the Nazis and the occupation and the Mussolinis, the Spains, the French, the Germans. So that's a story you can look up. But I wrote this paper in 1993, and he gave me an A on it. And I was like, wow, why did you like it? He goes, well, if your paper ever came to reality, this is exactly what would happen. So that was back in 1993, and I wish I would have kept that paper back then. There was not a lot of places you can store your files. I mean, I think I had a 3.5 diskette. I could have saved it. I'm not sure if that diskette would have worked, 10 years later or 15 years later, but nonetheless. So the point I want to make here is there has been a trend of these things happening. where a lot of people are losing their ability to generate revenue. And sometimes it's not losing, it's trickling down to zero. And the real estate lawsuit is just one of them. Now, I also have to tell you, this conversation, this episode is not about politics. Although I think most of what happens in politics is really economics. And I don't want to, hurt anybody's feelings or anything, but all the stuff that you're seeing right now, even though it looks like politics, it's really causing economic damage. And the thing about the real estate challenge, or the real estate, so the thing about the DOJ real estate situation, I've seen that coming. I was a realtor in California for about 8 years. And I recall I was subscribed to the MLS only. This means that you could pay something like $70, every 3 or 4 months, every 3 months, I believe. Maybe it was like $80 every 3 months. And you could have access to the MLS. And that MLS, you can see houses that were available. You can see the ones that pending. You can see the ones that didn't make it. You can see the ones that were on the MLS, the multiple listing service, for a long time. And maybe you might say, oh, maybe my buyer might want that one. Or if you were a listing agent, you're telling your seller, oh, it's gonna just keep it on the market a little longer and someone will want it. Now, I had MLS service throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, and part of the foothills. Probably about 10 to 12 counties, I had access to see which homes were available. I could list my clients' properties. I can show my buyers' properties on the MLS. And then I think about 2010, the MLS and the California Association of Realtors said, you can't have MLS service only anymore. You have to subscribe to the National Association of Realtors, the California Association of Realtors, and it was mandatory that you did it. And if you did not subscribe to those three organizations, the CAR, the NAR, and the MLS, well, the MLS is really the only one I wanted, you couldn't be licensed with a broker. You could not be contracted or attached to a broker if you didn't pay these fees. So I'm not sure what this DOJ Massachusetts lawsuit is really all about. I think I have the answer. I'm not sure if this DOJ lawsuit is targeting the MLS, the NAR, or the commissions. I want to go with the commissions, because if you strip away the NAR and the state real estate associations, you probably could sell real estate anyway. So let me get into it. Now, I just want to get that part done so I can really get into this thing. Okay, so what this lawsuit was about, based on what I read it, how I read it, and I will attach the link so you can read it. Basically, there was a handful of people, I think it was maybe 2, maybe 4, and they said, oh, the realtors, along with the MLS groups, they're making my home price be too high so that they can get paid. In other words, they were saying the listing agent is listing the house and charging 5 or 6%. So on a $500,000 house, that would be a $30,000 commission payable to the listing agent and the buyer agent. And the complaint was, that made me sell my house for $30,000 more, or up to $30,000 more. And maybe I could have sold the house for less. Maybe I could have sold the house for $515,000. And the two parties in the real estate transaction would only get $15,000. And they said they felt like they were not in a competitive environment, because, real estate agents tend to not want to list a property. Real estate agents tend to not want to show a property. I'm talking about the buyer's agent, if the real estate commission is low, like 1%. At one point in California, I think in other parts of the country, there were listing brokers charging only 1%. I'm not sure if it stayed 1%, but it was advertised that you could list your house for 1%. So the plaintiffs were saying no realtor is going to show their buyer the house if there's only 1% commission available. Now, mind you, 1%, the number is what it is. But what seems to not be understood by these DOJ people, and frankly, I believe the plaintiffs, and this is just my conspiracy theory, I believe the plaintiffs are fabricated. Hate to say it like that. I think the plaintiffs were picked, and someone said, John and Mary, I want you to complain about real estate commissions. And John and Mary, who probably had no idea, or maybe they were part of the whole thing all along, said, yes, we're going to complain. John, Mary, Dwayne, Sally, Mike, we're going to complain, and we're going to, be part of this lawsuit. I think it's a class action lawsuit against maybe 8 to 10 people, maybe more. So the 1%, I got to tell you something, people who are listening to this, the part that makes this complaint kind of bogus, in my opinion, to sort of force real estate people to lower the commission to like 1%. I mean, force them to. Business does not work that way. Just because you list your house at 2% doesn't mean that a realtor on the seller side and a listing agent and a buyer agent that brings a buyer is going to automatically snap up the house. There's a whole bunch that goes involved with selling real estate. There's like location, there's bedrooms, baths, there's garage, there's swimming pools, there's acreage, there's the style of the house, the architecture of the house. There's the school, where the schools are, what schools are in this location near this house. It's access to freeways. Is there crime or not? I mean, there's like probably like 15 different variables that come with someone selling a house and someone buying a house. And these DOJ people, these plaintiffs, this is really the government, they're basically saying if you list a house, there's going to be someone to buy it right away. And realtors, listing agents and buyers agents, your job is to sell that house no matter what it costs you as real estate agents. So if you have to spend 2 to 3 weeks driving people around to look at different houses, and listing agents, you're waiting on someone to drive around and they're paying money out of their pocket. And I'll tell you, sometimes real estate agents, they are paying, not only are they paying for their real estate business, and it could be $200 to $300 a month or more if they're with a big name broker. Not only are they paying easily like $400 or $500 a month easily. They're not able to pay the bills that come along with being a human. They still have families they got to take care of, and not every buyer is qualified. So, in other words, I'm not trying to make this empathetic thing for realtors to support real, because I'm not a realtor. Now, I'm not a realtor. I may be in the future, but I'm not a realtor now. I am a business development specialist. And I have a manual. I have a business plan for realtors. So this thing that popped out, and it's been popping out for the last 3 years. There's been several lawsuits. There was one in Texas with a big name broker. There was another one, I think, in maybe the Northeast, and here's another one that's in Massachusetts. So what I'm saying to people listening to this is going to be a big problem. So just to wrap up the 1% thing, realtors have expenses. So if you're going to get a realtor to make, let's say, $1,500 on a real estate transaction, and that transaction takes a month or 6 weeks, because there's all kinds of things that happen after the real estate contract is signed. Let's say the buyer accepts, or the seller accepts the offer. Then there's another 2 or 3 weeks that things happen. There's the loans that have to be moved through the process. There's property inspections. There's the appraiser. There's counter offers, that go back and forth that may take a week or two. There's, will you fix this before I buy the house? Can you give me money back? Can you pay my closing costs if I buy the house? There's, like I said, 15, 20, 25 different things that go on with selling a real estate property. So let's move forward. So the DOJ, they kind of rejected a settlement that the defendants proposed, which was like, we can list a house for $0, and or we can pay the buyer's brokers. So a proposed settlement popped up that the DOJ rejected, and that they rejected the fact that the listing agent could say they could pay the buyer's agents or the buyer broker $0. Okay, so that right there, I understood it. I don't want to explain to you what that means. You have to read it yourself. But further on in the document, and I attached the document to the podcast description, I think it was page 20 or 21, the DOJ said, we think we have a solution. The solution is the seller negotiates a price with the listing agent or the listing broker, and the buyer negotiates a price to sell, like a commission, to sell for the buyer's agent to sell the house. So I want to say that again, because I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not using any notes. I don't have the paper in front of me. I read it, I understood it. So again, it said, listing broker, you get to negotiate with the seller on what your commission is going to be. And separately, the buyer gets to negotiate a commission for the buyer's agent. That's what the DOJ kind of like proposed. And I'm going to tell you, folks, that will not work. You're talking about slowing down the sale of a real estate property. And here's an example. I'm a buyer's agent, and I want to help this person buy a house. And this person knows, the buyer knows, oh, I get to have these buyer's agents compete to find out who can sell this house for the lowest commission. And the DOJ didn't say there was any minimums or anything. So here I am, and I'm saying, okay, I've been in the business for X amount of years. My business expenses are this. I could sell your $500,000 house, or I can help you buy a $500,000 house, which would normally be $15,000 in commission if it was 6 divided by 2, 6% divided by 2, 3% to the listing broker, 3% to the buyer broker. I can sell this house for $5,000. Oh, I can help you buy a house for $5,000. Sorry about that. I've been on both sides, so it's kind of, so you see the complication already. I'm already like getting the two confused, and I've been an agent for 8 years and I know how it works. So the buyer says $5,000. Oh, I got an offer from another agent that says that he or she can sell it for $3,500. So that agent who wanted to sell that or help that person buy a house for $5,000 is out. Okay. And then another agent says $3,500. Oh, that's too high. I can help you buy a house for $2,000, which is $13,000 less than before. So you got to remember, the buyer, up to as of right now, the buyer does not pay technically the commission. The seller does. But the DOJ saying, oh no, that's not true. If the house is $500,000 and the seller has to pay $30,000, so that means that the price of the house is going to be $530,000, so that $30,000 can come out and pay the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So technically, the DOJ is correct on that. But when you look at what it's going to take for a buyer to find an agent, it's going to destroy the real estate industry. The same holds true for the listing agent. If the listing agent is going to say, look, I know it would normally be $15,000 I would get for selling this $500,000 home, I will accept $5,000 to list a house. And the seller will say, oh no, that's too high. I got a person over here that'll list this house for $3,000. Now, listing a house is a whole nother ball game. If there is an MLS still existing, that seller agent has to put that house someplace on the market so people can find it. And the way it's looking, the incentive to have a MLS system may disappear, because if the real estate agents cannot pay the fees to the MLS companies, I don't really give a shit about the California Association of Realtors or NAR. I'm just saying, I'm not a realtor. I'm just saying, just looking at it from where I used to be, the only thing I needed was the MLS service to upload the property, the pictures, write the description, put the price in, and upload that so that all the agents in Sacramento and San Francisco could see the house. That's what I cared about. All the other stuff, the car stuff, the California Association of Realtor stuff, the National Association of Realtor stuff, I didn't feel I got any value for the money I paid. I'm just talking. So, but I know there's things that they do, California Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, any state association of realtors, they claim they work on our behalf as agents, and they keep up with legislation. Well, I sure don't see any National Association of Realtors doing anything now. In fact, they're being sued. So I'm not totally against NAR or state associations of realtors. I just didn't see the value for the money that I was paying. So they can exist or not. But the fact that the DOJ wants sellers and buyers to negotiate commissions with the agents is not going to work. You're going to have someone, I can sell that house for $500. Or I can help you buy a house for $500. And guess what? Unless that agent is super wealthy, that agent's not going to last. That agent himself or herself at these low rates of being paid, they're going to be homeless. I'm just saying, if you're selling real estate and you're getting $500 every time you transact a house in real estate, and your own rent or mortgage is $2,500 a month, and the other expenses that you have, you're gonna end up making something like $5 an hour selling real estate. See, and that's not going to work. And none of these homes will get sold. So let me wrap it up. This is what I think the DOJ and the government wants. The DOJ and the government wants to control real estate, just like they are controlling, in a sense, healthcare. The DOJ and the government, in my opinion, my conspiracy theory, they don't want people making $15,000 per transaction. They don't want people selling houses in Los Angeles and making $20,000, $24,000 on both sides. The seller agent making $20,000, $24,000, and the buyer agent for bringing a buyer making $24,000. I believe we are in this era where the government does not want people making significant money. Because when you make significant money, you have freedoms, you have lifestyle. And I see the same trend happening in other industries, like dentistry. Right now, I belong to a consulting sort of news page, and the dentists are getting hammered. And they're getting hammered mainly because of inflation and other things involved with people not being able to pay for intermediate dental service. So this has been going on for at least the last, I want to say 10 to 15 years, where I see these threats to capitalism. Now, as I wrap it up, finally, the majority of consumers probably doesn't care if real estate agents lose their ability to earn commissions, because the consumers are saying, oh, I get to save instead of paying $30,000, and instead of paying $30,000 to sell my $500,000 house, maybe I can save $15,000, $20,000 and sell the house for just $5,000, and put that extra $20,000 back in my pocket. Okay, I can see that. I can do math. I went to Cal Berkeley. But here's the deal. What industry is next? If the DOJ and the government says, oh, you're making let's talk about hairstylists. Oh, hairstylists, you're making $300 or $400 every time someone sits in your chair for some type of hairstyle, and at the end of the year you're making $100,000. Oh, that's too much. You need to do that hairstyle for $100, and we're gonna enact the legislation saying that no hairstylist can make $100. Hell, let's just make it $150 just to be nice. That no hairstylist can charge more than $150 for doing hair. So that means hair manufacturers that make hair care products, you got to lower your prices too, so the hairstylist can make a bigger profit, or at least make some money instead of going broke. And see, that whole chain just goes down the line, and it just destroys the entire chain of people, of suppliers who provide services. See, and this happened, the real estate thing happened with the appraisers nationwide. You remember that if you are a real estate agent. You may remember that if you are a consumer, where the government said no longer could realtors pick up the phone and call an appraiser and get the appraiser out to see the house, to appraise the house in 72 hours. Now you got to go through a round robin. You just put your requests in, and the thing spins, and out comes Joe. Joe comes to see your house. You don't know Joe. Joe doesn't know you. Joe just appraises the house, because there were some problems with, at least some claims, that houses were appraised too low, some homes were appraised too high. So the government stepped in. So the government controls the appraisal business. So my question to listeners is, do you want this to happen to your industry? Because when real estate agents, on both sides make $15,000 each, that money goes back into the economy. They buy stuff. If you are an employee at a restaurant, the realtors come in and buy stuff. They have dinners. They celebrate the closing. They take trips. They buy cars. They pay daycare centers. They just don't sit on the money and just stack it up and say, hey, I made 15 grand and I'm not going to spend a dime of it. And my last question, realtors, what are you going to do about it? In my opinion, realtors, some are too damn stuffy. You're making the money and you're going and you're flipping your hair, or you're combing your hair in the mirror thinking that you're all cute and stuff. These people are trying to take your livelihoods. What are you going to do about it? Real estate agents, other business owners, you need to come together to form this sort of like quasi-union to start speaking up for yourself. Because if you don't, if realtors don't push back somehow, these government people are going to take your industry. And like I said, I'm thinking about getting back in the industry. So I do have a concern about this. It'd be nice to sell a house, but it's not going to be worth it if the commission is only $500. You see, and that's what the government wants. And I'm sorry to go back, but the government wants to take over the real estate industry. That's my conspiracy theory, and control the process. So my question to everyone, consumers, business owners who are not realtors, mortgage professionals, appraisers, inspectors, do you want the government controlling the entire real estate process? My name is Rick Napier, the president at 321 Biz Development. Website 321bizdev.com. Toll-free telephone number 855-600-9911. Today is February 18th, 2024, and I'm in Southwest Columbus, Georgia. Take care. Make it a great day.